All right, Steve Overmyer alongside New York Daily News Giants beat writer Pat Leonard once again. Let's get more into this Wonderlic test. We talked about the intelligence and trying to identify that. Yeah. I'm curious, what happens if you decide to start televising the Wonderlic test? What if the Wonderlic test turns into like a game show that we can root for the players to answer the question right? That's the show I want. That's the new reality show. It's my idea.
Listen, I'll tell you this. I mean, the combine started with just like these teams getting medicals on players, right? And now look what it's become. You know, you got auxiliary media rooms. You got all the head coaches and GMs lined up for interviews and press conferences, plus the players. So what I'm saying is that's not out of the question.
It's not. The draft was never televised until the public demanded the draft be televised. Would it be entertaining to you to watch a Wonderlic test game show?
It would be. It would be. Especially you're putting people on the spot, right?
Oh man, you're
seeing how they kind of sweat under the camera. It's a totally different thing. I mean, think about how many eyeballs are on you on a Sunday.
Oh, wow, that's right. This is the first test of that. Perfect example. All right. That's what we start off with here. All right, so we talked a little bit about how teams can interview players at the Combine. How much do those really matter to the general managers and the coaches if you get a positive or a negative result in those interviews?
Okay, so first, teams get an allotment of these interviews. I can't remember exactly what the number is. It was 20 or is it 50? But it matters, first of all, if a team calls a guy in. Like I remember last year, I had a beat in Indianapolis that they had met the Giants with O.J. Howard, the Alabama tight end. And even though they didn't end up selecting him, they went tight end in the first round. They went Evan Engram. And so the fact that drafting at 23rd, they were calling in a tight end who you thought was going to go in the top 10 is noteworthy. So when we report and when people start reporting who the Giants called in, who the Jets called in to this room to get a look, it means something.
Okay, it gives you an idea as to which direction they're looking.
Yeah, they will cast a wide net, but it doesn't mean nothing. Now, as far as how they go, first of all, think of the head coach and GM interviews here and what John Mara is telling us when they make these hires, and he's saying, here's why I hired Pat Shurmur. Here's why I hired Dave Gettleman. A lot of it had to do with when the doors were closed, when there were no cameras around, and it was just these men discussing what they felt the future of the Giants should look like, that they were on the same page, that there was a connection. And so that's not always a connection on a specific topic. It's not always... It might be, in some case, like a quarterback, Pat Shurmur feeling that this quarterback adjusts exactly to the types of audibles that I have in my offense.
Are they running plays? Does this look like the Gruden quarterback challenge here?
Right. It could be. They might hand the quarterback a piece of chalk or a marker and go up to the board and say, diagram for me, like Gruden does his football camp.
Right.
It would be something along, or used to, right? They might go up on the board and diagram for me, and they might list a UCLA play for Josh Rosen that they know the terminology for, and just see how quickly he can diagram it and explain it. Or they might make him watch a play that the Giants run or that the Vikings ran with Pat Shurmur and say, diagram this for me and tell me what you think the hot read would be in this situation. So there's a lot that goes into that, but it also might just be a feel.
Yeah.
Like Josh Rosen, I use him again because I think that if the Giants did draft a quarterback, he would be the leading candidate. And, if they have Josh Rosen, they might say, hey, listen, we know a lot of people say that there are character concerns here. You're overconfident. You might rub some people the wrong way. Explain to us how you feel about that, and why shouldn't we be concerned? And so, answers to the most sensitive questions. No holds barred. I mean, that's your 15 minutes. I think it's 15 minutes. That's whatever you have.
You got to drive down into it at that point.
You got to get into it.
And whether or not you're going to draft that guy, you could also be eliciting information for playing against that guy.
No question.
Absolutely.
No question.
Character seems like he's going to be a much more important element this year for the Giants. It was in the past. They got away from it for a few years, and it's come back to bite them. And a story that was revealed recently here is that Odell Beckham Jr. now plans on missing the entire preseason.
Right. Well, that's what it sounds like. Initially,
how big of an issue is this?
Huge issue. Well, first of all, he said 0-0 in answer to a question, 0 preseason snaps, please.
Wow.
He claims later that was taken too seriously, presumably by me, since I wrote a story off of it. But The fact is, his agent and the Giants right now are negotiating on a contract extension. And if Odell's word is to be taken seriously, that he wants to be the highest paid player in the game, that he wants to set a new bar for what players can be paid, if we're talking fully guaranteed contracts, whatever we're discussing, you look at Antonio Brown right now makes $17 a year annually, and that's the highest for an NFL wide receiver. Presumably, Odell's next deal will break that. This is a long way of getting to. Anything he says publicly now that alludes to not playing, that alludes to his plans for this next season, have to be considered folded into.
Absolutely.
You know, oh, are you saying that you're going to hold out? Are you saying that this is, the contract status will be affected? Or are you saying that no matter what Pat Shurmur says, that your head coach and your GM, Dave Gettleman, you don't intend to play? So he may not think it's serious, but in the context of where he is right now in his career and what's going on with the Giants, you have to raise your eyebrows when he says something like that.
What he says carries weight, and you have to look for the red flags with something like this. But this is going to be a week where you're going to be following the Odell story, and while you're talking to agents and players and GMs at the Scouting Combine. I wish you the best of luck. I know you're probably not going to get a whole lot of sleep there in Indianapolis, but enjoy it, man. Pat, thanks for coming in.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, the second pick is going to produce a little more buzz than the 23rd did last year for the Giants.
All right. Yeah, I bet so. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.